Today I'm bringing you a Titan build to get through your Legendary campaign. I had a few builds lined up for Edge of Fate that I was excited about, but they aren't quite working as well as I wanted to. So I've come back to a trusty build that got me through the final shape Legendary campaign, and that is Insurmountable Skullfort and Thunderclap on Prismatic. It's not very complicated. You get Facet of Courage, you use a 1-2 punch shotgun, and then you just Thunderclap everything. If you get a kill, you get your melee back. It's that simple. Because of the melee changes and the buffs to most melee buffs because they became additive, and we're only using a couple buffs here, which are Facet of Courage and 1-2 punch and knockout, this has gotten a pretty big increase in power, and it just shreds through stuff. It's super easy and it just destroys enemies. You'll notice I don't use it on Cyclopses. It's because they're constructs and they don't count as kills, and that's a little bit annoying, but very easy to manage. See, this is a Legend campaign mission from Lightfall. I'm still not showing content from the new expansion because I just don't want to spoil story content, but it's the exact same power deltas and everything, and just as good. Now we're going to take out this boss, and then let's get into it. I'm Engineer. Just giving an overview of the build, it's extremely straightforward. You just want to Thunderclap anything gets in your way. It's very basic, but very effective. It's good for general ad clear and some boss encounters. As for content level, it's carrying me through the Legendary campaign, which is, I need to look up these power deltas, but they're different, but pretty consistent for hard difficulty content. Now on the pros, it's super easy. Great AoE damage, great survivability because you heal on every kill, and you can get damage reduction from Amplified and things like Void Overshield. On the con side, it gets a little awkward if you miss a melee or don't quite kill something. There's just not a lot of weapon damage, but we can work around that. So let's first talk about our exotic, Insurmountable Skullfort. This is a base game exotic. You can get it from any source, and you can now go grab it directly from Rahul, as you can with any exotic that came out before the Edge of Fate. Now to go over what it does, on a powered arc melee kill, you get 100% of your melee ability returned to you, and you begin health regeneration. If you don't secure a kill, it will give you some amount of melee energy, depending on what type of melee you're using. Powered melees will give around 50% base. Melee hits while knockout is active will give you about 15% on hit, and then normal melees will give you about 5%. All these returns likely scale with the melee stat. I haven't had a chance to test them, and honestly I don't think it matters that much, because in a build like this you want more than 100 melee stats, so how it scales doesn't really matter. I did some very rough testing at 100 stat. Knockout melee hits restore about 25%. Normal melee hits were somewhere around 7 to 10%. So that's pretty much it. That kind of tracks with what I'm seeing on other things. Nothing too crazy here. It's a very simple exotic, but it's very good. Let's talk about our aspects and abilities. First, we want knockout because this gives us a melee damage buff and healing on melee kills. And whenever you break an enemy shield or deal damage to an enemy below 30% HP, you get that melee boost. You get a boost to basic melee damage, charged melee damage, you get a longer melee lunge distance, and your basic melee attacks now become arc-powered melee hits, which is all very cool. Now the second aspect though is very flexible. In the opening gameplay I was using Unbreakable, which is good for gap closing because you have a nice good shield to get close to enemies, but another good option is Drinker Slash because it gives you suspend and a darkness debuff for Facet of Courage. Diamond Lance will also give you some more ranged attacks and a darkness debuff as well. The super is also flexible. I like Twilight Arsenal because it has some range to it, but Glacial Quake does a lot of total damage, so for some encounters that's going to be very effective, but not timed boss encounters like dungeons or raids. Your grenade is also flexible. Suppressor Grenade is good for weaken if you're using Facet of Dominance, but Shackle Grenade is your easiest and quickest darkness debuff if you want that for Facet of Courage. For the melee, it is Thunderclap. That's the main event. It has huge AoE and great damage, and you can charge it up for even more damage. On the class ability, it's very flexible. I like Thruster. It's nice for repositioning. It has a short cooldown, but you can use a barricade if you want cover periodically to shield yourself from enemies that are far away. Moving over to Fragments, we have 5 fragment slots because of the aspects we've selected. Facet of Protection is great for damage reduction, and it works while you're close to enemies, which we plan to be quite a bit. Facet of Purpose can give you Woven Mail or Void Overshield or Frost Armor, depending on which super you have equipped, so do think about your supers in reference to this. That is one reason I like running Twilight Arsenal, as Void Overshield is a very good damage reduction source. Facet of Courage gives us 50% additive melee damage, and I'll talk about melee buff stacking just a little bit soon. Facet of Bravery will give you Unraveling rounds every time you get a melee kill, which is constantly, and that is an easy way to spread a darkness debuff around so you can benefit from Facet of Courage very frequently. Facet of Dawn just gives you Radiant, which is 20% weapon damage boost for 5 seconds on powered melee hits. And those powered melee final blows will make you and nearby allies radiant. Now it only lasts for 5 seconds, but because you're doing this so constantly, it's just free extra damage for whatever weapon you were using. Some alternates to think about: Facet of Dominance will give you Weaken on void grenades, which is good if you want to just eke out a little bit more damage. And then lastly, Facet of Awakening will generate an elemental pickup matching the damage you do with multi-kills. And because we were getting so many arc multi-kills, you will make Ionic Traces, which just keeps your ability regen kind of running. All these are pretty flexible, but it's just focused on damage reduction and the melee damage and getting some buffs off of your melees as well. Moving over to mods and Armor 3.0 stats. So on the mods, it's very melee focused. Take a hands-on to get some super energy, take a melee font, take 2 heavy-handed because you want to make orbs every 5 seconds, which is what stacking those up does. Beyond that, some extra sources of orbs like Siphons and Reaper are good. Otherwise, just a little bit of weapon support. I included some weapon surges here. These are just kind of the weapons I'm using just to get some good passive damage buffs, but you can definitely match these to whatever weapons you were using. Powerful Attraction is very good, so when you use Thruster, it'll pull in all those orbs so you don't have to go and hunt for them. I'm also using Better Already just because if you get in a pinch and you pick up an orb, it'll start healing. It's surrounded with Skullfort will start healing when you get a melee kill, and Knockout will heal you whenever you do get a melee kill, but it's nice to have this without requiring a kill so that you can get some healing in between. Now for the stats, I recommend above 160 melee stat for up to 30% multiplicative damage. The API was down when I was trying to make this content, so I couldn't see all my armor, so you could probably get up to 200, get as high as you can, just without taking everything else. Try and get super about as high as you can manage so you have that super up pretty decently. Get what grenade you can, get what class you can. Leftover goes into weapons if you have any, and then just dump health because you're getting healing from so many other sources in this build. Artifact perks, there's not a lot that synergize here. Elemental Coalescence will spawn a super matching elemental pickup when you score multiple kills. That's just good for getting a little bit more energy. Shield Crush will give you a stronger melee damage when you have Void Overshield, Frost Armor, or Woven Mail, which we should get on every orb as long as you're using a super matching one of those. It's 25% increased powered melee damage. I will note in the gameplay here, I do not have this artifact perk active. I'm still trying to get to column 5 and it's just taking me a little while. Lastly, also in column 5 is Tangled Web. When you kill strand debuff combatants, it triggers a Suspending Blast, and we can do this quite a bit, especially with Unraveling Grounds. So this will just make your Facet of Courage kind of chain through enemies, and that sounds really good. Moving over to weapons, our goal here is to boost our melee damage. So our 2 options are 1-2 punch shotguns or Bastion. Eventually, we should get 1-2 punch hand cannon shotguns, but we don't have access to those yet, it seems. So 1-2 punch is now buffed up to be a 150% additive melee damage boost, and my personal favorite is the Swordbreaker shotgun from Crota's End. It is a strand shotgun that can roll 1-2 punch and Pugilist, which is great. Kepler has a void shotgun called Precipio, and it also can roll 1-2 punch. I got lucky with one of these rolls on my first playthrough of the campaign, and that has been helpful as well. If you don't have these, Bastion, which is an exotic fusion rifle from the kiosk, has basically 1-2 punch, but it is a 300% additive melee damage boost, which is very good. Now some other weapons to think about. I've been using Finality's Augur from Sunder Doctrine if you're lucky enough to get it. Pretty much just shoot a turret out and just let it take care of enemies for you while you zip around and slap things, and that's pretty good. And it's pretty good for Transcendence Generation as well, just to help build that up faster. Tractor Cannon is a very good option with this too because it's a 30% weaken, which is the higher level of weakening in the game, and that will just make your hits even stronger because weakening effects are multiplicative melee boosts. Strand weapons, I definitely recommend you have something with Strand because every time you get those melee kills, Facet of Bravery gives you Unraveling rounds, and then that lets you scatter some Unraveling across your enemies. Lastly, Pugilist weapons can round out your melee energy. If you miss a melee kill or don't quite finish an enemy off and you're out of your melee, it's a good way to get that melee energy back kind of quickly. One other option here is Monte Carlo. I don't have a picture of it here, but that gives you melee energy on hits, and that can be helpful as well, just to kind of get you back up if you need to. But it is pretty rare that that happens, so I don't think you'd want that weapon all the time. On melee damage buff stacking, a change was made with Edge of Fate that melee buffs now stack additively instead of multiplicatively. I have a whole video going through that, but generally, if you have few buffs, this is a net gain because they buffed the base values of most of the buffs, as you can see a little bit in this table. But if you're stacking like 5+ buffs, then you're probably taking a little bit of a hit. So here with Knockout, Facet of Courage, 1-2 punch, weaken, and a melee stat of 200, we're getting plus 587% damage. Now I've included damage values here, and these are using the pre-Edge of Fate number of values, but the total damage comes out to over 10,000. For reference, a Consecration last episode was about 6,000, so it's hitting harder than Prismatic Consecration, and as long as you're getting a kill, you can keep looping it infinitely. New damage numbers have been squished, so you won't see numbers this big big in game, they will be a little bit smaller, but relatively so have the enemy health amounts. So relatively, it's still the same damage as what we're showing here. Now, I just want to show a little bit of gameplay. This is just a solo ops. This is not high difficulty at all. I am still working through portal leveling and all that stuff, so I just don't have access to higher difficulties right now, and I'm working on grinding that, but I wanted to get some videos out to help people out. So you can see here, this is the K1 Logistics solo op. This used to be a lost sector, but we've kind of made a little mission here. These are kind of fun just for testing out builds and just doing quick little 5-minute missions. But we were just rolling through this. It is very easy, which is expected, but honestly, I've been doing Legend Campaign missions with this too, and it feels just about as easy. Very few deaths at all. See a Bane enemy here, and we just pop them with a shotgun, and then just roll through it. Now, one thing to note is when you really want to stack up damage, it's about getting all those buffs together. You want to have knockout active, you want to get a darkness debuff on them, and then you want to hit them with 1-2 punch. Now if you have unraveling rounds active on a strand shotgun, and this is the only one with 1-2 punch, then you will just shoot. That gives unraveling and the 1-2 punch, and you're good to go. Just spend and then just slam, and that's the first damage phase over already, and then we just gotta work through these enemies to get the damage again. Also want to note that the normal melee hit with knockout active is also very strong and is also buffed by 1-2 punch, so in a pinch, just do normal punches, it's fine. Throw a little bomb. And the boss is vulnerable again. Gonna use our super here, Twilight Arsenal, just gets really fun and very effective. And then we're just gonna slap through these crowds. There's some axes, miss mostly, but we hit the Thunderclap. See a shotgun blast, and didn't even need to punch that one. Now, Transcendence is also very useful for getting an extra melee charge and getting another source of darkness debuffs. The boss actually flies over here, and then we just slap him to death. That's it. Really easy. This isn't a very hard mission, but it is very effective. Very briefly going over the gameplay loop, it is Thunderclap and then repeat. That's all you have to do. It's not that complicated, as I've said a couple times now. Now for damage buff stacking, get your darkness debuff on the enemy, use 1-2 punch or bastion, Thunderclap. And you can use Transcendence for extra charges melee or your melee buffs, and pretty much it. It's very effective, but it's been working pretty well. I haven't finished the Legendary Campaign on this character yet, but I will be working through it this weekend. Overall, I hope this helped you. And with that, I just want to say thanks to my supporters. I have several channel members now. Michael Patton, WolfGame07, Velvet Hammer, all new channel members, and I have Louis, Equitas, Mirage, Sushi Juice, Maddie the Ace, Davey0011, Infernal Park 111, and Aradriel. I really appreciate all the support on the channel from the channel members and just all the subscribers. I broke 5,000 subscribers, so you can stop hearing me talk about it. But I do appreciate all the support. I will be churning out a lot of builds. I probably won't get build videos out in time for the raid for damage, but I will probably put up a post of what I generally recommend based on where the kind of super meta is currently, along with some stat recommendations, because some of that stuff has shifted from what we saw before Edge of Fate. Other than that, I also put up a post today talking about how the armor stat system is not working as expected. The cooldowns do not seem to be the same as they were in the previews. I hope this is a bug, but hopefully Bungie addresses it soon, because really they're the only ones who can tell us. We'll see how everything shakes out. I think there's still a lot of fun builds, but I'm a little bit underwhelmed with Armor 3.0 stat benefits right now, and hopefully it's just bugs. But I hope you enjoy this build. Hope it gets you through your Legendary Campaign so you can get into all the content. And with that, I'll let you go. Thanks. Have a good one.